Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Talking Landscape Photography. It's absolutely amazing to have or to be back here live with you guys. It feels like it's been, well, it has been ages, hasn't it, really, Paul? So,
Oh man,
um,
third quarter of a year or something.
it's been a huge amount of time, and I think when we first started, we probably would have been shocked at having a gap that long. I think every time we skipped a week, we felt bad, and so having almost at least 3 months off the air as it was, at least live, doesn't feel right. I guess it was the original premise for the show to air live and to talk to people and get the community going. But we're back, and we do really enjoy doing this, and
Right.
we
At, at the beginning, I don't think we were sitting there thinking 4 years later we'd still be running it, mate. To be fair,
that
and
is a very fair point. That is
all three of
definitely
us have been traveling and being working photographers and being away. Luke's been the furthest away of all of us. I spent the summer in New Zealand. Um, Ben's done various things, but also he's not here at the moment. But I hope he's going to join us through the middle of the show. He's out being a working photographer, paying the bills, and yeah, he's been over in Italy. Um, And I guess tonight we initially were hoping to start with a live show, but just to kind of say hello and set the tone for the year and re-engage with the audience and let them know we haven't forgot about them and we're all still here and we're all still excited for the show. And it is kind of amazing that after all this time, it still feels like we've just got endless amount of people to draw upon and ideas and things that we can share and connect with. And it's not always that we get a bit of a voice or we get a say or we get the spotlight, as it were. So kind of felt like it was kind of appropriate, given that we've had 3 months and doing lots of shooting and various things, that we maybe start the ball rolling ourselves before we start rolling out any more guests. So you're gonna have to bear with us this time.
Yeah, let's I think fortunately we do have a little bit to talk about, and we've had some pretty interesting things happen while we're away, and so it was definitely nice to actually be able to spread the wings and do something a bit different than normal. So yeah, so I don't know, should we just get stuck into it, Paul? Talk
Oh, I
about
might
what
as
we got.
well, I reckon.
Yeah, I wanted to first start just by I guess kind of honoring a photographer that I follow, and I'm sure some of you might do as well, Alan Wallace, who actually passed away quite recently, and he was an amazing astrophotographer. He had a quite a popular YouTube channel and did quite a lot in his I guess short life, and yeah, just wanted to you know wish his family and everyone all the best, and it's quite a big shock for the astrophotography community, and yeah, thoughts are with everybody involved there. Absolutely. Cool. So moving on to the adventure, and what I might do then is I'll just share my screen and I'll just sort of explain what I got up to in my summer adventures. So here we go.
A little bit fresher than many people's adventures, Lucky.
Well, possibly, yeah. I mean, it's I may, if any of you have heard me talk about Antarctica before, this may be rehashing things a bit, but yes, I did go over to Antarctica for quite a period of time, and in line with that, I also then did some time in Patagonia, and I'll explain how all that worked. But basically, a lot of people think that if you're living in Hobart, you're going to Antarctica via Hobart, and taking a ship and just going straight down like that. It's actually quicker to fly to South America and get a ship from Ushuaia than it is to spend, I think it's at least 5 days sailing, depending on the vessel, of course, and how fast it is getting down this way. But then, of course, when you do get down there, it's kind of the continent. I'm sure there's beautiful things there, but I know there would be. But it's quite special area that a lot of the tourists and those sort of vessels visit in the Antarctic Peninsula. So let's just see how that works. So started in Hobart, flew to Sydney. I actually had to do a layover in Auckland, and then you actually fly quite a large flight, Auckland to Santiago, which should be around about, oh, there it is there, Santiago. And the interesting thing is, it looks like you'd fly it like that, but it actually loops all the way down. And in fact, on the return trip, I flew from Santiago, and we actually literally flew over the ice shelf of Antarctica. We could actually see the continent. So one of the flight stewards said that he hadn't only done that a handful of times in his career of 20 or 30 plus years. So it was pretty amazing to actually see Antarctica on the way home like that as well. But you have to, going through Auckland's definitely a longer slog. It's nice to have a stopover, but if you can get a direct flight to Santiago, it's always advisable. Just a note on Santiago.
What was the bigger picture this year? Like you're working for certain organizations. You did 2 or 3 back-to-back trips, 47 days, I think, all up. I was just trying to
Yeah,
get a big
exactly.
picture
Yeah,
before you
I
dive
was.
into the
I can sort of go through that as I sort of tell the story of the journey, I suppose, and who I worked with, and show a little bit about that. So it's a good query. Um, so I flew over to Santiago. If you are going to go to Santiago, it's just it's a good idea to make sure that you don't do a layover there too long, because you actually do have to have a visa to visit Chile. And the problem is that if you're changing a flight, you actually have to leave the custom or re-enter customs again. So if you don't have your flight checked through to Buenos Aires, which is the pretty much where everything goes, then you might get into a problem there. I didn't actually have any Chilean visa because I was checking through, but I think it's important to call out just in general, if you're flying through, you could get caught out if you didn't have a visa and your flights didn't work the right way around. I've heard stories of someone flying into Santiago and then because they had to change their flights, they went through customs and then they didn't have a visa. And even though they only just, left the airport or were still in the airport effectively, they got into all sorts of dramas there. So just worth noting. So a lot of the stuff goes through Buenos Aires. There is some ways to go through Santiago and down, but generally speaking, you are going to do some time in Buenos Aires. And I don't think I've ever been on a trip through Buenos Aires without something going wrong or something happening that may have caused delays of other strikes or storms or World Cups or something like that. And this time there was a massive storm that took out some planes at the airport. And unfortunately, they'd recovered by the time I got there. So I didn't have a big delay, but some people have been waiting for 5 days for a flight down to Ushuaia, and I just swanned in there and took a flight before them. So you can get lucky or unlucky depending on how that goes. But point being, you generally are staying at least one night in Buenos Aires. It's definitely worth looking around. It's not, I have to admit, it's not my sort of city, but it is a pretty amazing place, and the South American customs and all of that are quite interesting. And then basically you fly from Buenos Aires all the way down. It's about a 3.5 hour flight from memory down to Ushuaia. And so Ushuaia is called the southernmost town or village in the world, although Porter Williams in Chile would probably disagree with that. It's clearly further south. I guess it might be an Argentinian Chilean argument there. But essentially you're flying down to this place called Ushuaia. And it's also, as I'll talk about later, it's actually part of Patagonia itself. So when I say I went to Patagonia, well, if you go to Ushuaia, you're kind of in Patagonia anyway. But I guess the popular knowledge of what Patagonia is more up this way, around El Chalten, and also the Chilean side over here, Torres del Paine, and all of that sort of area as well. Because of the visa complications, I only focused on the Argentinian side, and that made things very, very easy and streamlined for this. But that's just to explain where I guess Patagonian Andes are in relation to Ushuaia down the bottom here. So that's about I think it was a 1.5 hour flight from Ushuaia to El Califato. Anyway, we'll cover that, how that all worked. And so what happens in Ushuaia, you basically jump on a ship and you head out through the Beagle Channel, down through, I think you probably go around this way. There is Cape Horn here. Sometimes you're lucky enough to see that. And then down through this way, keep going, and then you get down to the Antarctic Peninsula here. And so this is essentially a continuation of the Andes mountain range. So you can sort of see, if you zoom out, at the Andes here at one point before all of this sort of tectonic movement happened, that was all joined together. And so that's why the mountains along here are just completely astounding. And so that's sort of what I was saying earlier about continental Antarctica versus the Antarctic Peninsula, and there's no good or bad there, I think, in that respect, for sure. So I just thought I'd start off with showing a map just to give a context, because I don't really want to have to keep switching back and forth to maps all the time, but that just gives a context of what we're actually doing, going from Ushuaia on a boat, ship, down through to the peninsula. There is another way you can do it. You can fly into King George Island over here. There is an airstrip on the island somewhere, and you can, I think there's some yachts there that you can take, so you don't actually have to do the very infamous Drake Passage, which can have all sorts of awful weather, and I have experienced that myself, because you're basically having this circumpolar current going around Antarctica, and it's sort of just getting wedged just through this little gap here between the Antarctic Peninsula and South America. So that's really going to cause some, create some weather and some conditions. I also was lucky enough to go to the Falkland Islands and also to South Georgia Island. And what happens with that trip is you actually leave from Ushuaia and you go out this way, visit the Falklands, then have a couple sea days here, go to South Georgia Island for a few days, and then you have a couple more sea days. You might stop off here at, I think it's Elephant, is it Elephant Island? Oh, that's not Elephant, that must be down here. Elephant Island, and then you're at the peninsula itself, where there's a whole bunch of landing sites and different things you can do. We also did encounter the world's largest iceberg, which I'll show some pictures of too, and that was, I think, in this sort of region here at the time. It's obviously drifting around, but we were lucky enough to kind of intercept it. I think we had to go a little bit out of our way, but wasn't too much out of our way to see that as well. So, which is a pretty incredible experience in its own right. So you can see there's quite a lot to see. Most folks, or most trips, go down to the Antarctic Peninsula. Was fortunate to also do Falklands and South Georgia, and you'll sort of see that it's a little bit different in terms of what they have to offer and how they work.
Look, what sort of ocean time are we talking about to get to the Falklands, and then get to South Georgia, and then get down to the peninsula?
Yeah, I think from memory, this is about you have to leave here and go through the Beagle, which is a bit slower than out this way. I think it's about 2 days to get to West Point. It's basically like two, and then like 2 there. So that's generally, so you kind of have, it's actually kind of nice because it gives you a bit of time to have a break between the shoots, and they can be quite intense. It gives you time to prepare, it gives you time to go through all the biosecurity rules, because we visited South Georgia when it was actually the bird flu time, and that's actually has been impacted there. A lot of fur seals have been succumbed to the bird flu. So in fact, it's affected the seals population quite a lot more than it actually has affected the bird population. You could say, at least more visible anyway. In that case, often the birds will die out at sea, and then that's not as visible, of course. So that's a bit of a generalization to make. Yeah, so that's sort of the layout. So, and then that's 2 days across here as well. So that kind of gives you a bit of an idea. And normally you spend about 2 days on the Falklands, about 4 days on South Georgia. And then most trips to the Antarctic Peninsula, you're doing about 4 days on the Antarctic Peninsula or more. It's kind of a long way to go if you're not spending a decent amount of time there, as it is anyway. So I might as well flick over to some images now, and then we can sort of see how it's all working there. So basically, the first trip I did, we'll just see if you're still seeing the maps. I'll just share to the correct screen. All right, so great. So basically, this is the ship that I went on the first trip, which is called the Polar Pioneer. I was lucky to have Anne join along, who's a very dedicated viewer of the show. So thanks so much, Anne. I can see you already made some commented on the vid. So yeah, thanks so much for coming along, and I hope that you've still got some really treasured memories of the time we had out there. I have to have full disclosure that my editing is still not complete from all of this. So what I've done is I'm bringing up my Lightroom catalog and showing some of the processed images or different images as I go. But this is by no means like a show of portfolio level images or anything like that, which to be fair is quite hard when it's such a large, I don't know, large undertaking. That we're talking about so far 70,000 photos I've taken since December last year, basically. So
Oh my
that's how
God.
many shots are in my catalog at the moment. So it's a lot to go through. And you might say, well, why do you take so many? But there's a lot of the shots you take down there are all about the timing. And so there's a huge benefit in actually taking multiple shots so that you can pick the exact right moment. And it's a very different style of shooting to what I'm used to. Can't say I'm like completely, I mean, I definitely prefer landscape still and slowing down and using a tripod. Never shot so much handheld in my life, really. As I say. So this is the first trip was with Southern Sea Ventures, who's actually run by Toby, who's a good friend of ours, and he was actually on the show talking about this particular trip actually about a year or so ago, I guess. And yeah, so and that's who Paul also is going to Svalbard with. And so like, I'm doing the Southern Hemisphere and he's doing the Northern one. And anyway, it's a brilliant little ship, this one, because it's a 50-person vessel. And we had even a few less than that. So it was very, very comfortable, and it meant that there was a lot of space in the Zodiacs and things like that. So this is just a shot of it actually on the docks in Ushuaia. You can see, the scenery around is pretty spectacular. There's some beautiful mountains, snow-capped peaks, and all sorts around. We had the most stunning day as we were taking off. You go through some like sort of obligatory safety briefings and different things like that, just looking where all the life rafts are and things like that. Although, you kind of really hope that you don't have to actually use them because, it's going to be pretty cold out there. And then finally, you sort of take off from the actual experience, I suppose. I do have a video that I'd like to show at the end of this too, if I can get it all sorted and queued up. But that really helps to sort of show what the experience was all about. Captain does the cheers, and then you're sort of off in the Beagle and seeing some of the sites that are around. There's huge bird colonies through the Beagle Channel. This is a colony of cormorants, and you saw penguins and other whales and things in the Beagle too. It's a really stunning way to sort of leave, and it's a different kind of environment you're going through. Some of these are actually, I think they might even be fagus trees in there as well. But the Patagonian type of fagus. This is the pilot. So basically, there's a guy that's employed by the Argentinian side of things that actually jumps on board in Ushuaia and actually guides the ship through the Beagle Channel. And I was able to stay out and actually get him jumping off. That little boat just basically pulls up alongside the ship as it's moving, and he just jumps onto this decking and just has to time it just right as he gets off. And then they'll go back to the pilot station and wait for the next ship to come in that's going back into Ushuaia, and then he'll help guide that ship into Ushuaia. So it was kind of interesting to see how some of the maritime aspects of this work. And this is them, the able seaman getting the sort of the rope ladder and stuff up after he's jumped off. So it's kind of like you're really on your own now when something like that happens. But yeah, it was pretty cool to be out there. And we did sort of fast forwarded a few days because we did the Drake crossing, and then this is one of the first icebergs we actually got to. We're very fortunate to actually get to some icebergs with some penguins on it even before we got to the Antarctic Peninsula itself. We're able to, it's debatable where Antarctica starts. Some people say it's, I think we're below 60, is it 60 degrees? I should know that. Or not, but in this case, I think it's when you start seeing some ice, you're getting pretty close. There's a huge scale here, like you can see these little guys here, all of their little tracks around and stuff like that too. So I mean, the scope for detail on some of these shots is amazing. People getting excited, taking some photos of all of the penguins, and just amazing seeing the waves washing up. And then the penguins will sit in the wave and wait for the wave to kind of break alongside the iceberg, and then they'll jump and try and cling on, and they must have some crazy claws to be able to grab onto the ice
I
and
was
actually
going to
pull
say,
their
what
whole
the heck
body.
are they going to hang on to? It looks like a big vertical wall.
Yeah, that's just it's pretty much a vertical wall, yeah. And that
Wow.
they're just hoping to, you can see this guy's trying to claw on, and they're just hoping to get a bit of grip there. This is another one that didn't quite make it. I could probably edit these a bit more and crop in a bit more. There's quite a lot of resolution there to play with. And you can sort of see here, this is an example of the wave coming in and how they'd be jumping off that wave and then trying to get onto the iceberg. So the scale of things is quite hard to imagine when this is just the edge of this giant iceberg that's there. And you get all these beautiful sort of textures in the ice too. You can go crazy just photographing the ice only. Got a few albatross. It's a light-mantled albatross flying around, which aren't the easiest ones to catch. And got a really amazing sundog as we're getting further south, or this sort of, was it perihelion, a sort of refraction of ice of light through the ice crystals. It forms a beautiful halo. Yeah, that was some really interesting sort of misty, moody weather on the way down. And then we're really fortunate to actually see some orcas on the way in, and they did get pretty close, and we were able to actually slow down and check them out, and they were checking us out, doing some spy hopping, and yeah, poking their head out and having a good look. Managed to get a few different frames. It's got a storm petrel in the shot there as well. Yeah, they were, I think they were doing some kind of behavior where they were, I don't know, the amount of birds around, they must have had a kill or something, because they were trying to scavenge for actual little bits and pieces that they were after. But it's a good opportunity to get some bird shots too, and they're all kind of clinging around like that as well. It's a kelp gull. And then the first landing that we made, we actually had a bonus. We were able to actually get to a landing site early, and actually had an additional landing that wasn't really, they were hoping to get, but it was really fantastic. And so they put out the kayaks, because Southern Sea Adventures is a kayaking first sort of business. This Robert Point that we went to is one of the only places I've been on Antarctic Peninsula that actually has elephant seals. And they were in fine form, burping and farting and making a horrible racket. I should have an audio recording
It's
of what they
smelling
sound
bad,
like.
I'm sure.
Yeah, they're honestly the most. It brought the 14-year-old out in me anyway, just giggling at some of the noises that they were making. It's quite an incredible place for that. Yeah, always some turns around or bird life. So you always look in the sky and see what you can capture as well. And then plenty of little gentoo penguins around. It's a sort of a younger elephant seal, and then some chinstrap penguins as well on that island. So it was a pretty good collection of animals actually. That's the few paddlers there around the Polar Pioneer that was off the coast of the landing, the little sort of mooring site there. And then yeah, there was a few little chicks around as well. So it was pretty amazing just to get down there, and all of a sudden all of this was happening, and there was chicks and all of that sort of stuff going on. So it definitely was a really nice time to be down there, with the chicks being quite young. It did make it a case of hard to see them sometimes. When they're a bit larger, they're a bit more obvious, because there's this big thing right underneath the mother or father penguin. Yeah, a lot of comedy, or a lot of emotion in some of these animals, and how they look. And yeah, trying to isolate the white with a black color. Often in Antarctica it's hard to find a darker colored rock to do that. So that was quite nice there. And just really surreal scenes. This sort of big snow cap would be a few stories high, just with the Zodiac and the towing the actual kayaks there. So very surreal. And then there's a few penguins so they have these super highways, which is what they actually climb up. And just, I guess it saves a lot of effort not having to go over the rough stuff if they can just go straight up a little highway. So you see these sort of grooved highways forming after a period of time. And then there were also I don't know if I got any shots of the skiers, but we will see some of that later. They had some ski aspects to it as well. Then we moved on to Paulet Island and the Weddell Sea, which was completely incredible again. Some really amazing icebergs and bits of ice that you go past that you can kind of collect photographs of. And my favorite thing is seeing these guys just sitting on the icebergs, just impossibly just in the middle of kind of nowhere. You can see another little party over here. It's like, what are they actually doing there? Just hanging out on these little floating ice bits, bergy bits. It's quite incredible. And then this is a snowy sheathbill. I think that may have landed on the ship, and but was able to get a little bit closer to it. They're kind of not the most favorite bird of people because they tend to eat all the poop from all the other animals. So they're not the cleanest kind of
Yeah.
figures around the place. Yeah, got some nice cormorant shots as well. There's an Antarctic cormorant species which is very, very beautiful to photograph, and you're lucky enough sometimes to get close to get a good shot. And then we landed on Paulet Island and got some cool stuff here with the ship behind and some of the little penguin guys there just putting on a show that they're there's times where you just feel like they are really just putting a show on for you. That they just tend to, just keep doing crazy stuff like they're trying to outdo each other or something like that. So yeah, it's just an amazing place to be able to. You can see what I mean about timing here and trying to get the right shot just at the point where they're sort of in midair and that kind of thing. It can be a challenge to get that. And I hate to admit how many shots you take for just one or two of those to work out. Here we've got one actually sort of flying in midair between this amazing kind of ice kind of bridge that's sort of collapsed there, which is pretty outrageous. And then some little chicks here. So these are all Adelie penguins. They're a little bit different to the other ones I showed earlier. There's the Gentoos, Adelies, and the chin straps. And these guys are really I think they're probably my favorite in the sense that they have just so much personality, and they are very, very photogenic as well. So yeah, and that's Paulet Island, I believe, from the side. This is actually kind of like the landing site where we actually went to, and there's like a little sort of, I guess, a volcanic lagoon back here that we visited. There's just essentially a big volcano there. So there's a bit of volcanic activity because of the tectonic activity that's happening in around the Antarctic Peninsula. So so you do visit a few volcanoes, which is pretty amazing. This is the front of the Polar Pioneer as we're going out into the Weddell Sea. And yeah, we found some pretty amazing icebergs and just a really beautiful shapes. Starting to get closer and closer to some really massive tabular icebergs that kind of dwarf the size of the ship that you're actually on. It's not a massive ship anyway. This ice feature just looked like an old man or something, just sort of leaning out there like a wizard or something like that. So you see just a lot of anthropomorphic judgments made, I suppose, about the shapes and the animal behaviors and things. It's easy to do. Gives you an idea of how you get around. Some of the guys here that we traveled with on the Zodiac was really fortunate to not have a huge number of people on the Zodiacs going around doing this sort of thing. So a lot of easy free movement. You can see how stable they are as well, just being able to stand up and just capture some shots like that. So it's pretty cool what you can do. We went to another island called Astrolabe Island, and it's got the most incredible mountains there. I just hadn't seen anything like it before, and this penguin just decided to plant itself quite nicely in the frame for me. Saw a few seals there, and this is the other crew. We've got a bit of snow. This is actually Christmas Day, and we did have a white Christmas, which was pretty amazing. And in fact, we got sung to by Gustav, who was one of our guides, and he was also an entertainment singer as well. And so it was quite a memorable time. Aside to things you probably don't see when you see all these pictures is what goes on actually on board, and the friendships and the associations that you make with the people on board, and it really adds a lot of richness to the actual experience, which is pretty cool. And when I play the video, you'll kind of hear a bit of Gustavo singing actually. This is one of my favorite shots of Toby, the sort of, wasn't an expedition leader, but he was definitely got the whole thing together, and looking through his binos there with the sort of reflection of the mountains behind, sort of ever watchful, I suppose. And here's one of Toby and what's why is my mind just gone blank? That's so awful. I've been not sleeping. I've been sleeping nowhere near enough, it seems. But they, yeah, absolutely having a great time, and that was a really stunning day there. And I think this is when we're moving on to Spurt Island. So here we've got Martin, who was the expedition leader, and then the photo program participants there down in the Zodiac. Yeah, and going through these amazing sort of rock canyons, and we also got to see some amazing
Oh yeah.
you know, sea caves as well with these icebergs at the end. It's amazing. Elijah, that's his name. Here he is here, cruising through, been pretty happy about it all. There's Toby there, going through some of the big chasms here at Spurt Island.
Christmas
And
hats. There you go.
they had to do some obligatory, kayaking shots, given that that's what a lot of it was all about. Here's some of the skiers here, right up the top of a big ascent. They basically just get dropped off, and then they spend half the day climbing up these mountains, only to then just ski down again. And you're just like, what's the point of that? And I didn't really get it until they actually shared with me some of their GoPro footage, and I put it together in a slideshow that I realized how incredibly beautiful and amazing it is to do some of these runs. And yeah, you
I'd
just have to
love to try that.
see the footage to really get an idea of just the scale and the that there was only 3 of them out there. They had a completely different trip to us, which is pretty cool. Here's some light bouncing off the Polar Pioneer and at the end of the day, and yeah, another view from the other side. You tend to put the ship in the context a lot, because the ship is kind of the focal point of the whole thing, and your kind of lifeline really, and where you're sleeping, and so it's nice to give that sense of context and give a few different ideas on what's around. Yeah, I really like that one. This is another ski run that the guys did as well. So that this is yeah, just love the sense of scale in this, with just these clouds and mountains behind, just tiny little figure. And I think that's probably a crop as well. I'd say it's probably a much broader scene again. That sort of gives a bit more of an idea of the broader scene with this tiny little.
Huge.
Yeah, the scale, like the thing about Antarctica is that you see all these like tiny shots of penguins and little bits of icebergs here and there. You can take wide angle shots, but then everything's diminished. So I think it's incredibly challenging to actually get a sense of what it's actually like to be there from a photograph. And I mean, this can give you some aspect, but it's like that to your left and it's like that to your right. I mean, you almost have to do a big panorama or something just to make it all work. This is a Jordan character on the ship, and rugged up on one side and not on the other. It's nice to always take photos of the characters on board as well. I did also try my hand at a bit of infrared, and yeah, I was pretty happy with how my new full spectrum camera performed, and I was using some filters in front of the full spectrum sensor just to get all of that goodness out of it. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with how some of the IRs came up. Just start again, and then yeah, everyone enjoying the landscape there. A few pengies and some nice. You can see that's kind of like a color version of the shot before. Yeah, I guess when I sort of had a kind of the expedition photographer role on board, in the sense of kind of capturing the wildlife and the animals and the general experience. So it sort of does change a little bit how you look at capturing the experience. But I feel like if I was to show you what it was that we were doing, this is a bit more authentic, or it's actually kind of giving you a better idea of what actually it is like to be there, which you might not see from a lot of finished portfolio shots. Always nice to find creative framing ideas, and all of the kayaks stacked on the back of the ship there with the amazing view looking, I think this is looking towards the Lemaire Channel area, if I remember rightly. Some amazing sunsets coming through. And always nice to be up on the bridge. It's a really good bridge access on the Polar Pioneer, so really able to you know, be in comfort inside there and nice and warm while it's freezing cold. I think it was definitely sub-zero when I took this outside. And there's Anne taking some shots here. And as we're getting into the Lemaire, it's one of the most stunningly beautiful scenes I've seen in my life. As we went into the Lemaire Channel, it was completely mirror. And this is probably one of the shots of the trip, this one here, just in terms of telling the story. I do have a shot of this without the ship in it too, because we fortunately did turn around as well. But to see this, this is kind of like one of the key highlights of going to the Antarctic Peninsula, going through the Lemaire Channel and having it all freshly sort of snowy and also just mirror calm. And it was overcast, but I think I kind of liked that. It's really made it really soft and it just was really easy to photograph too, because there wasn't too much dynamic range there, which was nice. And then the most amazing thing was that they stopped the ship in the middle of the Lemaire Channel and put out all the kayaks so people could actually kayak in those beautiful reflective waters. So it was really quite a, you know, as a kayaker, I think you would be kind of like pinching yourself being able to do something like that. I know that, you know, Toby was pretty excited that he could offer that to everybody. We saw a few whales about as well, which is always good to get. I always find whale photography very challenging. You're only looking at a tiny little fraction of the ocean as that whale tail comes up, and nailing a good one can be really challenging. And then if you're using like a high resolution camera, it's even less forgiving. So that's always yeah, a bit of a challenge. And then yeah, kind of, you know, it's nice to see, you know, signs of affection if that's what's actually going on, but just some interesting ways of interpreting it. There's Ian, one of the guides, and a very well-regarded climate researcher as well, and has had an incredible Antarctic experience. I was very inspired and impressed by, you know, the breadth of his knowledge and what he's done. So some pretty amazing people come along on these things. So crab eater seal was playing around being a bit funny, and yeah, it's nice to see everybody out there all rugged up. Another kelp gull, and then we also saw a leopard seal coming back through the Lemaire Channel, which was pretty amazing to see. The skewers, you see a lot of those around, and got some amazing light just coming through as the sun was setting through the Lemaire Channel. Mind you, you know, sunset at this time is very late, so you're looking at midnight or something. Like my file here is saying, well, it's saying 9:40 p.m. and the sun's still probably up here, and then all it does is it just skims the horizon and then keeps going again, so you get this beautiful sort of golden light for a long period of time. Yeah, more kayakers. We've got now we're getting more around Nico Harbour. Sort of like a lot of the guides refer to this area as like downtown, where you get, you know, some most of the I guess ships and places visit at, you know, around these sort of areas. Got a few group shots as well. It's always nice to have to put together, and then always nice to find times where all of the penguins line up, and it can be quite a visually stunning kind of scene to go through. Yeah, another shot of the bridge here, and then on the way out we went to Deception Island, which is an incredible. I would definitely recognise it from some of Peter Eastway's work, and rightly so, because it's such a photogenic and interesting place. It's not the kind of beautiful kind of place. It's an old whaling station essentially, but you can really get some very interesting photographs. It's actually in the caldera of a volcano that did erupt in the 60s, I believe. So yeah, this sort of made for portraits and that kind of thing, going through all of that steam and mist. Oh, here's another one too. I forgot to show with the penguins all lined up going up the row there. And then yeah, and so that's sort of like the end of the first trip basically. And believe it or not, I think I was only just, I don't think I was definitely not even halfway through the trip by this point. I think this was only maybe I might have only been just a quarter through the trip by the time I finished this, which was pretty mind-bending to say the least, because the amount of stuff I saw, 16, 17,000 photos, and the most incredible finish was that we just had an orca just jump up right next to the ship on the way out, just on the last day, just after we did our group photo. Everyone was out there, and we saw some orcas, and I was able to get a pretty awesome shot of one just popping up out of the water right at the end. So what I might do is try to track down this video, and that will help to tell the story. If I can track down where I put it. That's not very helpful. I've moved all of my files around so many times that I have forgot where I put it. Here it is. And it does go for a few minutes. Actually, I realize it goes for about 13 minutes. So I don't know if that's a good one to play now. What I might do is just maybe link it if anyone would like to see the video. I feel like that's probably a bit long for what I've got to show at the moment. But yeah,
Just play. Do you want to? Does it work to just play a couple of minutes, Lucky, or just want to
I'll play a couple of minutes. Might play towards the end because where is it? So, can you hear that all right?
Sounds a little bit jumpy.
I didn't probably optimize for.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
I use a lot of GoPro footage to help to tell the story quite a bit better. Some of these aren't my images too. What was really great was being able to have some of the guest images and sort of them all together. So it was a real collaborative kind of process as well. Like this is from the kayak, something that I never got to see because I was never on a kayak. So it's like being out on the water. Now comes the fun part. If you ever go to Antarctica, you got to do the polar plunge.
Oh,
The facial expressions are absolutely priceless of people as they jump in. And I have to admit, sometimes if they didn't look so attractive when they were jumping, I just did the last bit so that it was still quite generous for them, if that makes sense. As Toads, I had to do a couple of them.
okay.
Love the part at the end too. One here of the Dr. Andras. You really love that shot. It was cool. So this is Gustav singing.
I like Christmas.
From now on, our troubles will be miles away.
This is
Here we are, as in olden days, happy golden days of yore.
there's a completely standing place. Would really love to get back to Astrolabe. This is a good view of what the things actually are.
Oh, the skiing GoPro. Oh yeah.
And that's one of my favorite shots of the trip, which I've still got to do a bit of work on. But yeah, there's a story and a half in just that one Yeah, some really great. Toby did some amazing portrait work of the kayakers as well. So certainly can't claim credit for all of those. There's me shooting actually that Governor Rick. Probably just showed you a lot of these photos. Yeah. But I really enjoyed this last bit, just showing going into the Island Bay, Island. That's the line here on the road. He's had an amazing run up there. I just love the storytelling of these GoPro time lapse.
Yeah, really pretty good there, eh?
So that last bit there was I was photographing the orca at 20 frames per second on the A1. So that's actually, it looks stop motion because it's actually playing single frames of my photographing that actual sequence. So that's how I managed to make that happen. And then all of that whole video was edited while I was on the Drake Passage. So it was definitely a challenging thing to do with it. It wasn't a particularly kind Drake either. So that was a very big sort of achievement of mine to be able to put something like that together in challenging conditions, and very glad I upgraded my laptop to be able to do that. So that's that trip. I don't want to take up too much more time because there's quite a lot to go through. Next I went to Patagonia, and you might have seen a nice little shot there on the thumbnail that was sent through. No one's seen this portrait image anyway yet, and I was very fortunate to be able to get into Patagonia. I basically had an 8-day layover between going on the first Antarctic trip and then starting the next one, and I decided not to hang out in Ushuaia and actually go and fly to El Calafate, which I showed you on the map earlier. I probably will switch back to the map though, because it's probably relevant just to show you what you actually do there. You fly into El Calafate here, and you actually take a bus, and that bus actually takes you up around this lake, Lago Argentino, and then you go up around this one, and then down in, and then you're in El Shelton. So I think it's about I can't even remember, maybe a 2-hour bus journey, something like that. Not a particularly challenging thing to do. The buses are right there at the airport, and you jump on one, and then the next minute you're in El Shelton. I was surprised how easy it was. The big thing to know about El Shelton, I mean, it's an amazing little tourist village. It's kind of feels like you're living in a quarry when you're there. It's just surrounded by all these big rock walls. And there's an amazing assortment of different pizza restaurants and all sorts of amazing food there. But the key thing to note is that to get to the good stuff, like the photo I just showed you, there is quite a bit of walking involved. And so, it's not awful, but it is there. And so you basically start off at the end of the town here, and that takes you, I believe it goes up this way and then goes up through the mountains here and then comes out near Laguna Capri here. And so Mirador del Fitzroy is one of the sort of more well-known lookouts here. And also the lake itself is also a brilliant spot. There's also a hidden waterfall, which I don't know if it's on maps or not. It was at the time, but I don't know if it's there anymore. But basically, if you do enough sleuthing around the place, you'll be able to find a waterfall along that water course there. And essentially, for my money, that was the shot. And I know that it's been photographed a lot, but I just really thought it worked so well, having a really interesting foreground with the shot. You can see this must be taken around April, because you can see a bit of fagus turning, actually getting this golden color in the trees here, because I was there in summer, in the middle of summer. In fact, on just a few days after New Year's Day. It was very, very green, but dry. So didn't really have much golden foliage to play with. So that's why I thought the waterfall would play a nice part in that. The big walk that you actually do starts off in El Shelton village and then goes all the way up here and then actually goes up to Laguna de los Tres. And then that's got a really stunning view straight to a very, very famous peak, Mount Fitzroy. Probably seen it on all sorts of things like the Patagonia logo and all sorts of other aspects. So it's a very, very famous mountain, and for good reason. It's completely incredible. You can't really understand how imposing and how much of just an insane rock face this thing has until you actually kind of get there and see it for yourself. Unfortunately, on this particular evening, I was able to see it without any cloud on it. It was the only time I saw it the whole time I was there without cloud. And the thing with that was that because I was there only a few days after the solstice, and a week or two after the solstice, sunrise was about 5 in the morning and sunset was about 10 p.m. And what that meant is, and it's about a 2 to 3 hour walk, or about 2 hour walk from El Shelton to actually to where I was taking photos. So basically I started the day at about 2:30 or 3 in the morning, and I finished the day at just after midnight. I got back to the accommodation. Now you could ask, why didn't I camp up there? And believe me, I did ask that question of myself, but the reality was that I didn't. This was kind of like an add-on to almost 2 months of being in Antarctica. So I didn't really want to then stack on a whole bunch of other stuff. I was trying to make it easy for myself. And so I actually had some rest days between. So that enabled me to have such a big day. And believe me, I felt pretty ordinary not going up there on one of the rest days. I really would have loved to have been able to, head up there and be up there every day. But it was actually nice to be able to spend some time resting and getting the fire in the belly, I suppose, to be able to capture some photographs up there and do some stuff. I don't know if these particular shots have been taken. I'm sure that they have, because there's been a lot of people that have visited here, but it's always nice to see something. I deliberately didn't take too much notice of what was going on around the place, and just kind of found my own way. These are unedited infrared shots. And there's probably a wider view of what the waterfall actually looks like. This was already at 8 p.m. and the one I showed you here was taken at 10:07 p.m. So it sort of gives you an idea of how big the days can be. And I'd also done the whole Laguna trek too. So yeah, so there's going to be some really interesting infrared work here that I've got to do, because these are completely unprocessed at the moment. You can see the kind of almost sepia toning in the infrared going on. So you can see the beautiful light coming in here. And so once something like that's actually processed up and you get all the detail out of the clouds in the back, I'm probably almost a little bit more excited about the infrared stuff than I am about the color, although the colors.
Is the dynamic range much different when you're shooting it?
It can be, yeah. And the real issue, and I'll see if I can find an example. The real issue with the infrared is it really loves to flare. I had a few shots where I only realized that the flaring was there later. I may have deleted them too because I was trying to save card space, but the flaring was just a real problem. And I can't, of course I'll find it as soon as we finish, but essentially you can't have the direct sun in the shot at all, or else it's just going to start. It's already a little bit ghosty, although a dehaze will remove that. But the flaring is pretty obscene. It might have been a bit earlier in the day, but anyway, that gives you a bit of an idea. Just going through my shots, is that about half of the day I think I must have camped. I actually had a nap at the waterfall and all sorts. The other thing that's amazing is the lenga forest there, and so lenga is basically another word for their fagus trees, which are considerably bigger and You know, they do a little bit more over there. There's pretty much most of the trees you see in places are all lenga trees. I spent a whole day actually photographing the lenga forests, and it was thoroughly enjoyable just wandering through and trying to find different infrared compositions. And so here's some examples of the different scenes that you find, and you're looking in a very different kind of way when you're finding these sort of shots. And sometimes they work and see a bit of a flare coming in there. Sometimes they don't work, but you just sort of keep on persisting, and eventually you might find something that, oh, this one here is quite nice with the dappled light. And then as soon as the sun that goes behind a cloud, you just put the camera away in terms of infrared, because without any dappled light or any sort of direct light coming in, there's a good flare example of how it just obliterates the shot really. It just really without that direct light, it's kind of nothing. It's much more dependent on it than you would think, and it's just going to look boring without it. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to putting a little series together of all of these, because I think they could all work quite nicely together. If you can imagine, I mean, you probably just have to put it in black and white mode and go from there. But thought I'd just show you a bit the cheesy one of me being happy seeing all of the mountains around the place. And then there's some pretty waterfalls there too. So there wasn't a companion, it was just someone that was there. It's nice to have a sense of scale. Yeah, anyway, so that's a bit of Patagonia stuff. There's a lot to get through there as well, but it kind of gives you an idea of working on this sort of stuff though was very meaningful, and arguably just as exciting as some of those more scenes you're used to seeing with Mount Fitzroy. But obviously, if you're going all the way there, you'd be crazy not to at least get some nice shots of Mount Fitzroy. It's just so photogenic. And there's definitely a moment that I'll never forget, which is, and I don't know if I've got it actually on camera or not, but when there was some condors flying past, and they were just so incredibly fast as they went past, and they were so far away, but they were unmistakably a condor. And yeah, that was just a really amazing thing to see up there. So yeah, sorry I don't have like finished shots to show you, but in some ways it's just that's what a infrared might look like if you're trying a very alternate processing. I don't know if that's a bit garish, but I'm sure it is. But yeah, the straight infrared shot without a color balance applied will actually look like that, because you're actually photographing in the red color spectrum. So it's truly like a red and white rather than it being a black and white. In fact, if I go, say this shot here, if I go to white balance just on auto, so you can sort of start to see daylight white balance looks like that. So you're having to do quite a dramatic color correction on these to actually and have a custom white balance applied to actually get a meaningful color out of it. And then I don't want to take up too much more time, because Paul's still got to go through all of his adventures. I was able to catch up with some Sony people and did a Sony trip, and my friend Bentley was also a guide. That's one of my partner Joe's best friends, and she was the bird guide on board, yeah, I jumped on a different ship this time onto the Ocean Endeavour. And they had some really cool graphics here of the Ocean Endeavour going through Antarctica. And so yeah, I was on a whole new trip, and this trip was actually this was a South Georgia trip. So this is a 20-something day, 22 or so. There's a lot of days. There's too many numbers to remember basically. But this is us. These are going to be a little bit more rough than the other ones, unfortunately. But yeah, we
How many
basically this one's about 200 people, so it changes pretty dramatically, and it was booked out. And the reason it was booked out was that we had Paul Kelly on board, and that was pretty incredible in its own right. So Paul Kelly was the entertainment, as well as Andrew Denton as well, and we had Ben Quilty, who's an amazing artist on board as well. So there was quite a lot of amazing talent on board, and yeah, it was just a real privilege to be there, really. And it gives you a bit of an idea of some of the things you're trying to do when you're on the Drake or on the sea days in this case, because you don't really go on the Drake on the way to uh, Falkland Islands in this respect. So just a lot of open ocean, really, not much else to see, but you do get some pretty incredible sunsets. And so some of these will be pretty fun to go through, just trying to get the birds sort of lined up with the sunset or a feature, or ideally you'd get it sort of aligned with an iceberg or the sun or something like that. These still have a bit of going through. But definitely we're lucky to get some sunrise sunsets. And then we actually made it to the Falkland Islands, which is a British territory, sort of all part of the whole war thing and all of that. Don't talk about the war, they say. So we actually went to a place called West Point, which is got the most extraordinary rockhopper penguin and also black-browed albatross colony. And so I was able to get some really interesting shots of the rockhoppers, doing what they do, and some little albatross chicks as well. And then even sometimes the baby penguins get pooped in the eye. It's quite unfortunate. And then yeah, the rockhoppers are just like rock stars, really. They're just the most incredible things. Here's a wide shot just to give you a bit of an idea of the scale of the place, and how sort of rugged and beautiful it actually is at West Point. Yeah, just some of the birds there that you get to sort of interact with and get close to. That rock's annoyed me so much. Oh well. Yeah, and just the preening behaviors, and these are one of my favorite birds, these albatross, and they were just so wonderful to photograph, and you could get some really sort of graceful, kind of almost really just interesting positions, and yeah, just stunning creatures, and very fast, huge wingspan as they're flying over and coming into land. So yeah, there's plenty. Matt, what's my capacity for names isn't doing well, but Matt, what's the Matt that runs the f-stop again? Matt Payne. Yeah, he had some incredible shots of from this location, and I think he definitely got some ideal conditions for it as well. But that's you do what you can with how things are, and it it was pretty breezy, but it was definitely a beautiful blue sunny day. And you get basically, they have a defender there, and they'll take you up into a little cottage, and you have a cup of tea and a scone and stuff like that, which is pretty fun. And then back onto the ship. It was very bumpy, very wet. You get very wet in the Falkland Islands getting off the ship if it's windy. This is the fleet of Zodiacs going out to get more guests, and this is them sort of getting off, and that's the gangway. That's how you kind of get on and off the ship. So that there's quite a lot of splashing going on, getting very wet. You want to make sure your camera gear is really well put away and looked after, so that you don't end up having to make an insurance claim. There's not much camera stores out there. Fortunately, I was looking after a loan kit of Sony equipment, so there was some backup stuff if something should happen, but you don't want to have to rely on that, of course. So
that big was that
that was a turkey vulture, I think, this one here. Yeah, sort of similar, quite similar to the condor, actually. But condors are massive compared to those, another ship that we encountered. You very rarely see other vessels, actually. And then we went to another place called Saunders Island, which has all sorts of colonies of all sorts of things, but probably mainly famous for actually having some Magellanic penguins. But they had this really amazing beach there that just had all this sand just kind of going across it. And so I've got a lot of shots to go through here still, but you can kind of see it's almost a surreal thing that the gradient of that sand is more processed one there, probably over processed actually. But yeah, it's just a very unusual kind of scenario, having all of these guys hanging out on this sand. What else have I got here?
So was
Here's
that
one.
was that the flying sand?
Yeah, so this is like, because it was windy, the sand sort of like all running along, blowing across, and it's making this beautiful layers, which was yeah, really quite. It just gave everything a real sort of 3D kind of feel to it, like yeah, just it made it feel a bit more mysterious and just otherworldly in a way. And so hopefully the photos can sort of translate to that. There was a few king penguins there as well, so it was nice to see those guys. I thought we'd only see them in South Georgia Island, but there was actually a few around. This is a bit of timing. You can see all the different frames you take here, just waiting for the different arrangement of penguins and trying to find one where there's a bit of separation. But they, of course, they never, well, that one's pretty close. They never tend to actually agree on do what you want to do. The minute that you want one to move one way, the other one moves, and so you never actually get the shot you're hoping for. But that's all part of it, really. All about the timing and how it all works. So that's Saunders, really fantastic place to take photos, and probably showed you some of the ones that I probably wouldn't show normally. So it gives you a bit of an insight into all of the behind the scenes stuff as well. And then basically you start on a whole bunch of, or we did visit Stanley as well, which is the capital of or the main town in the Falklands. And we had a guy talk about name escapes me of the guy too. Unfortunately, names are not working for me today. But he was that's a phone shot, but he was talking about that he rediscovered the Endurance, which is Ernest Shackleton's ship. And so it was, they'd actually organized him to speak to the whole ship in this church in Stanley, which is a pretty amazing thing for them to do. And this is an actual photo here of when they send down the submarine, and actually got a photo of the back of the Endurance, which is pretty amazing. Which is if you're not familiar with Ernest Shackleton's story, if you ever go on an Antarctic trip, you'll definitely hear all about it. But it's a story that you should really look up in terms of the human survival and what that guy actually put himself through, and in order to keep everybody alive is just obviously a story for the ages, and definitely something that you just hard to fathom the conditions that those guys actually put themselves through. And then after that, we decided to go to South Georgia Island, which is completely different. And South Georgia Island, this is me on the front of the ship looking pretty happy. South Georgia is absolutely stunning. Like, the landscape itself is pretty incredible. But yeah, I feel like there's, never enough time there, really. You really go there to see these guys, though. Just thousands and thousands and thousands of king penguins, but also heaps of fur seals as well. All
Oh my God,
sorts of other.
that seal looks smaller than the penguins.
Oh yeah, the penguins are massive. In like there's just the one sitting there, but then all of these guys getting in the water too. So it's seriously one of those ones. And this is the other challenge, trying to get a clear shot of a penguin in the water when you're in a Zodiac that's bouncing around. Because unfortunately, because of bird flu, we couldn't actually land. So a lot of these shots have to be taken from a Zodiac. So you have to give yourself a little bit of credit in the fact that these are actually taken on a boat where you're bouncing up and down, and you're holding what's this one taken at 300 millimeters, sometimes 600 millimeters. And it's just inherently very challenging to actually be able to, get a sharp shot, or you're often pushing up your shutter speeds very, very high in order to be able to get these shots sharp and that kind of thing. But you're able to get up close to some pretty interesting birds and get some. So it's a very wildlife kind of dominant place, you could definitely say. Much more about that. You can see here, I would have had to correct my lens position because the boat would have been bouncing up and down. So you take a lot of shots where it's not quite right, because you either that or you have to take it wider and crop in. And then you can see what a penguin molting here in the back as well. It's not
Oh,
very unusual when they're doing that. Yeah, so that's I think we'll start off at Right Whale Bay. That'll be a keeper. You often look at shots like that and then you actually zoom in, you go, oh, I just missed it. There's like shooting at 50 megapixels, it's very unforgiving, and sometimes it's not quite locked on the focus, which is always a pain. It depends on how much you need it to be like pin sharp, of course, for that. This one's pretty cool. They're getting really low and using the specular highlights in the water with an iceberg in the back as well. So yeah, I'm scrolling through thousands of shots here, and they all look very similar because there's just so much chaos. And ordinarily you'd be able to actually get off and walk inside of the walk sort of in areas where there's less of penguins, so you can get a bit closer. But and being on the ship, it just sort of made it a bit harder. And then I got some really cool storm petrel shots where they're actually flying around, and managed to get a few where they were actually throwing up a bit of water. That they're extremely fast. It's basically, oh, this one's nice too. It's basically like it's like a video game trying to shoot these guys. You're just moving around like so fast trying to get them in your, and I don't know what that's at 600 millimeters. So you can imagine how small the field of view is that you're trying to aim at it at the same time. I don't think that's cropped either. So that it gives you a bit of an idea of, this is the actual sequence itself. But you can see that the boat probably moved up as I was shooting, so it went out of frame, and only one of them actually worked. But fortunately, it's in a pretty interesting position there.
okay.
And that one there I wouldn't have used because it's obscuring its head. So yeah, I hope you appreciate the behind the scenes aspects to some of that.
It's really good. Like, it really makes you realize how challenging it is, and just
Yeah, I don't know. It's I mean, don't forget, this isn't like the normal stuff that I shoot. So it could just be that I'm actually really horrible too. That I'm open to that. I don't know if this one's tack sharp. It's pretty, no, it's a little bit. Well, it's loading. Yeah, it's just a little bit off. So I don't know how much you can forgive yourself for those sort of things, but I'll try. But anyway, so that's South Georgia, and you could just keep on going and going and going with South Georgia, because it's just a different sort of scenario. You get icebergs that come up from Antarctica, but it's not so much about ice and snow. It's more about crazy sort of maritime weather and really old gnarly kind of mountains and things. And this is another cool thing that happened. Paul Kelly actually played in the Grytviken church, and I was actually able to carry his guitar to the church to do the actual this is Paul and Chimu guys and one of his guitars there getting ready. And Grytviken's an amazing, really interesting old whaling station in its own right. And this is all, everyone parading themselves down into the church. Well, it must have been earlier, getting off of the ship. Yeah, everyone getting into the church to see Paul play. And then yeah, here he is in the church. I tried to get a few different angles as well. Definitely preferred the main angle of looking straight down the aisle, and or trying to get as centered as I could, given that there was other people around, and you can get up the top as well. So it turned into a bit of a music shoot as well, which was something I wasn't kind of anticipating, although I probably should have if I knew that Paul Kelly was coming. Here's another one here of him. Yeah, just
how
what he does.
how long a set did he play though?
It was about 30 or maybe 20 minutes each, or a bit less. So that's the guys there in front of the church, and I need to probably got a few raindrops on there probably and things, so I need to work on that. I did bracket these two, by the way, so if they look really bright, I do have the other frames. I've just got to put it together. And then, like, honestly, Grytviken itself, if you like, photographing old machinery and textures and rust and decay, then it's pretty amazing in its own right. And then, of course, you've got the seals and things around as well. But it was a bit sad because they were, quite a lot of them were sick, and And yeah, it's definitely I spoke to people that have been there before, and they were just like, this is a completely different place to when I was here at other times. So fortunately, you haven't been there before, so you kind of know that ignorance is bliss in a way. Oh, must have been Paul's second show. Yeah, that's right. This guy put his bag here, which is super annoying. Um, but yeah, just always try and get a few different layers. There's a bit more of a creative kind of interpretation through the railings here. But anywho, yeah, it was super cool to be able to photograph Paul and do all of that. And then because I was shooting those shots, I got to go back and we actually were all in the same zodiac and were able to toast to Ernest Shackleton's grave, which is actually on Grytviken. That's the church there in the context of the actual area. There's the Shackleton whiskey that we drank, and yeah, that was a pretty cool experience. Having a yeah, bit of a shot of that, and then yes, anyway, more Antarctic / South Georgia. And then yeah, this is an incredible day because of all of the snow and in amongst the elephant seals and the fur seals and things like that. Definitely some interesting moments and beautiful kind of really different sort of characters. Love these seals in the grasses. It's really stunning. That one had that was probably cuter.
What
So
was your
yeah.
protection when you're shooting in the rain, Lucky?
I just used the lens hood really, and I took some tissues and other things to kind of keep the camera dry. But yeah, there's not really like any one thing that I did have a rain sleeve, but I very rarely used it. It was just more about, snow's actually good. Like this is probably 0 degrees or really close to it. And the snow doesn't just sort of bounces off. So we didn't really get a lot of rain. Rain's really what you got to worry about. But to be honest, the times that were really the worst was actually, so this is Leith Harbour, just showing some of the old whaling decay, I suppose, and things like that. Yeah, it was definitely getting back onto the ship, getting off the ship and back onto the ship when it was really windy and rainy. And focusing is very hard. It probably isn't focus. I don't know, with the snow. It just focusing on snow is very challenging. But it's also really beautiful to get the all of the snowy sort of shots. So it's a bit of a catch-22. It's a waterfall that Shackleton walked down. If you know much of his story, there's a few. I think might even be Paul Kelly in there. Yeah, so definitely had a very snowy day this day, but it just gave it such an incredible feel. And I'm getting storm petrels in the snow and stuff. I don't know if I had much success with that. Honestly, autofocus doesn't, well, at least the Sony autofocus isn't really. It's a very challenging thing for it to know what's snow and what's not. Well, that one might have worked out. So yeah, so that's always part of it. But that's probably, it's a bit of the bird flu sort of stuff going on. Beautiful light. And then we had the most incredible sunset that night. This is a cloud that had the most amazing colors in it. So it basically had this UFO type shape. It was lenticular. And if you really zoomed in on it, you could actually get a rainbow of appearance on it, which is pretty cool. But that sky just kept on brooding and developing and developing. And eventually I did get a bracket of that. Don't worry, it's not overexposed. The sunset at the end was just one of the best sunsets I've seen in my life. It was just completely just unbelievable. And there was that many people out there just had totally blown minds about this sunset. It was pretty spectacular. After such a snowy, cold day, it was a pretty awesome thing to see. So it's Simon. He's worked for Sea Shepherd before, and the photo guys. I really like that shot actually. Just showing everyone having a bit of fun. Some storm petrel wings there. That one's still molting. So yes, and there's a glacier just comes down in Gold Harbour, impossibly. Absolutely stunning location, Gold Harbour. Just mind-blowing, almost overwhelmed by how much was photographing at the time. I remember by this stage, because it was just every day you're just taking so many shots and focusing and concentrating and thinking about the next thing and making sure you had all the loan equipment out and making sure all the people in the photo program are being looked after as well. It was a pretty intense time in a way, but you sort of see what you get to visit some of these places, and you just, looking back on all of these shots, you just realize how lucky you were to be able to see some of these things on. That's another shot. Some of the camera gear didn't quite make it, so that wasn't the best. That never put a camera in the bag with another camera without padding, and that might happen. So view off the back of the ship, sort of showing how close you can get to some of the scenery. And yeah, I feel like yeah, that, I mean, I don't know, I could kind of keep on going, and let's go down to when I was in we did the largest iceberg. Where is that?
Yeah, maybe pick your favorite thing to wrap up on, Lucky.
Yeah, I think that's a good call, because otherwise, I don't want you to miss out on what you're doing there. Basically, what I showed you to that point was maybe just to halfway of the whole trip. So that's the humpback whale next to the Zodiac, for example. Like there's the number of moments and the number of things you see and the number of experiences you have when you're out shooting and traveling and just doing this day in, day out. It is really, really overwhelming. You get to revisit places, like going back to Paulette a second time. You get to it's a real gift to be able to do that. And I look up the thing is that let's just go back to here. Yeah, these are probably some of my favorite shots coming into the Antarctic Peninsula on the last trip, and getting a beautiful sunset, sunrise rather. Day at Nico, just most incredible light, beautiful black and whites there too.
Oh, yeah.
Being able to photograph terns with food in its mouth. This shot of a storm petrel I'm super happy with, just flying over the ice. They're really hard guys to get shots of, getting them in flight, just yeah, all of these are unseen actually. I haven't showed anyone these, so you're first to see these. But yeah, just the most incredible kind of experience to be able to have, and I'm very, very grateful for being able to get down there. And I will be going back. These are some of the guides mucking around. So if you are keen to come and join me, you can check out, if you get the email, or send me an email. I'm going over in March next year. So going back on the same ship, the Ocean Endeavour with Chimu and Intrepid. And it should be a pretty incredible time. Just focusing mainly on whales. Now, this is a shot I got of Paul Kelly, which I'm really proud of. He was lit inside, and I went outside and shot him through the window so I could get the reflection of Antarctica as he was singing behind, which turned out pretty cool.
It's magic.
Yeah.
Magic.
Yeah. So yeah, just reach out. Been there 4 times now. I know people that have been there many more times than that, but I feel like I've learned enough over that time to definitely help you with your photography when you come down. And yeah, there's so much more to see, and it's just the most incredible experience. So please do reach out if you're keen. And I'm sorry that I didn't have a whole raft of edited shots to go through, but I sort of feel like it's also interesting to kind of see some behind the scenes things as well, and you may have got a better a bit of an insight into my process and how I do things and yeah, the sequences that I have captured and things like that. Cool.
I think
Thanks, Paulie.
it's made it feel super real, Lukey, like you're actually doing it yourself, and I think that's a really special insight to get that, like the process, the challenges, the weather conditions, the movement, and just the immensity and the complexity of all the different subject matter you've got to come across. Oh my God.
It's
hard.
just it's kind of never ending in a way. Like there's always, and you can do a panning shot of this, or you can choose to shoot it static, and then you're shooting a whale with a mountain, and then you're shooting people on a zodiac, and then you've got whales breaching before breakfast when you decided to go out, and you're just glad you took your lens with you. People were in there having brekkie looking out the window, and a whale was breaching out the window. Like it's just yeah, it's just a real experience, and yeah, I really hope I get the opportunity to keep going back down there and experiencing it. I know that I'll be there in March, and so yeah, that's the next best thing, and yeah, that's then I got back in sort of at the end of February, and just been kind of chasing my tail ever since, because it's also a very as an experience, it's so overwhelming. You almost need a week or two to unpack after something like that, and mentally as well as I guess physically. And then yeah, it's just it's a bit of a struggle to even get through the edits as well. So I'm getting there slowly but surely, but it's amazing.
How many how many terabytes did you come back with for that 47 days?
I brought a 4 terabyte hard drive, and I was starting to really struggle finding space. So it would have been close to that. And I didn't really shoot much video at all. But the big difference was last trip I had an A7 IV and an A7R5, and this trip I had an A7R5 and an A1, and the A1's 50 megapixels, so the file size is quite a bit bigger, and also it shoots at a higher frame rate, so I was actually taking a lot more shots as well. So I had to do a lot more culling, and so the time that I would have been spending editing, I was spending actually culling photos while I was on the trip. Plus, you're wanting to rest and recover. You don't want to be sitting there editing shots while you're actually out there. So, so yes, you'd sort of come back with a hell of a lot of work under your belt because of that. And my shooting style is very much just spray and pray, which I still think is the way to go with a lot of this stuff, because how many times are you going to be there? Data's cheap. You might give yourself a lot of work at the back end. At least you've got some shots there. So that's sort of my approach there. So sorry for chewing up some of your time there, Paul.
I was so enjoying that, Lucky, to be honest. I could just keep going. Like I was really coming along for the ride, and thinking like a photographer does, and getting a really realistic kind of sense of what's possible, and just how immense an experience it is pretty overwhelming, but in a magical and also a very privileged sort of way, to see a part of the world that very few people will ever get to see. And not only that,
I think they were saying, yeah, less than 1% of the world's population or something would see it in their lifetime or something like that. So it's a very, yeah, you never lose the fact of the privilege that you have being able to see something like that, and being able to be there. And it's a very visceral thing when you're down there. You know that you're on, and you've got you don't want to waste any time while you're there, and make the most of everything. I was always out on deck, always taking photos, almost like sometimes it was like you were just almost over having to take photos, because it's kind of relentless. You're always doing something the next day, and I could choose to not do that, but then you're kind of like, well, I'm here. Like, no.
I was the same in the Arctic, like especially with 24 hours of daylight, there's no stop except when you push the stop button.
The sunrises are super hard. Like sunrises at 3 a.m, and sunsets is midnight or something. So you either have to forego sunset and then shoot sunrise. Sometimes you get up for sunrise and it's no good. Like it's just it's overcast and the sun doesn't even get through. So yeah, it's pretty brutal. And then once you're up, you don't really go back to sleep again because there's still things happening around you. So it is quite a demanding thing. So but I did the best job I could. That's all I can say.
Better than most, I imagine, mate. And you know, if when you're old and retired, you can still be going back through all these. I imagine finding gems down the track. It's that's the case with these really high volume shoots. Like aerial photography is kind of the same. And you know, you're taking thousands of photographs in a day, and when you're on a 10, 12 day, 15-day trip or something, it's a bit ridiculous. But anyway,
I
I'm
just, I
not
just thought
gonna.
I saw that there's a couple comments. I just thought I'd
Oh, yeah,
answer those. Praveen's just asked if it was a 720 nanometer filter that I'm using, and that's true. Yes, I was using I was using this camera here, which is a Sony A7 III, and I've had that to be converted to infrared. So basically, gotta find the focal plane here. So that is actually a filter in the front there, and I can actually pull this, and you might be able to see, how do I get this angle right? You can see that this is sort of levering off. I don't want to break it now. Oops, there we go. So there's a little filter there that I actually just pulled out from the front of the sensor. And so that filter is sitting in there, and that's 720. Well, this one's actually an 830 nanometer. I've got that afterwards. But the 720 was what I took to Antarctica. So that's
Is that just a Sony thing to be able to do that?
this is any camera can do it if it's converted to full spectrum. I mean, you can put this filter in, I could put this in my A7R5 if I wanted to, but because it's not converted to full spectrum, it'll take forever to take a photo to get enough light through, because it's the camera's already blocking infrared, and then this is blocking the infrared even more, or restricting this. Sorry, it's letting infrared through, but the point is that the camera is blocking the infrared. So it's going to take a long time. So these are really for full spectrum converted cameras, essentially. So I'm probably not going to try and put that back in while we're alive, because I might not get it right. But that's how it works with the infrared. It's a new camera. Prior to that, I was actually using a camera that had been converted to infrared, so it was full-time 720 nanometers. Now with these filters, I can choose 720. I can choose 830. I can choose even 500s. So it just depends on the mood. But I am really liking the 830. These are all the Case ones, Case brand. I like Nissi, but they don't do these, so I had to get Case. Yeah, that do recommend them for if you're looking to get into infrared. I think it's a very clever way of doing it, because if I wanted to, I could shoot in infrared, I can shoot in full spectrum, I can shoot whatever wavelength I want now, rather than being limited to one particular wavelength. So that's cool. Over to you, Paul.
Yeah, I might squeeze in what I can. It's well, I didn't go on a 47 day crazy venture like Lucky did. I actually chose to go home and spend most of the summer with my family, which I really deeply enjoyed. Mum's getting on a bit, and I don't know how long she's going to be around. So, and I've been away from my family for 25 years, living in different countries. So that was absolutely magic. So most of that I focused on portraiture of my family, to be honest, which I won't share here. But we've had a pretty magic summer. I had 5 weeks of 28-degree perfect weather over there. Couldn't believe it. Climate change is it's going to be catching up with us. But if you put your head in the sand about it, it has its perks when the weather's good. So I came back, and actually just before I went, I did a beautiful workshop to finish off the year with Ben, actually. And we went up to one of my favorite places in the world. I just want you to make myself co-host, Lukey, to share screen. I don't know if you do that for me. To my beloved Tarkine up on the far northwest coast.
All good there, Paul. Sorry about that.
Oh, good.
Anyone would think I was trying to stop you from talking, but who would be game to do that?
Yeah, good luck with that, mate. So yeah, screen's coming up all right, Lukey?
Oh, it's coming up bloody beautifully, Paul.
There you
It's
go.
a mockery of my unedited schmozzle.
A lot of these actually, since I've had an R5, I've been editing a lot on the fly, just on my phone actually, and literally I did a half of these in the back of the car during the workshop, where I just picked a few, and what do? You just you give it a star rating, so then you Wi-Fi it to your phone, and the Lightroom on my phone is basically exactly identical to my desktop. So the editing I can do on the fly is basically exactly what I do on my computer. So So the flip side, of course, is at the end of it, you're left with a JPEG, whereas you've got to go back and do it sort of all over again. But I get a little bit excited, and I like to share stuff with clients. And when I'm playing around and being a little bit sort of playful and dancing around and trying different ideas, it's really good on a workshop to have that immediate feedback and throw back to people the different ways you can see the same place, which is kind of what you're there for in a lot of ways. And a lot of what I find a lot of my clients want to see, they want to say, I want to see how you shoot. Sometimes I
So
find,
Rapid River again?
what's that?
That Rapid River
Ah,
again?
this is Rapid River, yeah.
Yeah.
Rapid River is on the Tarkine Drive, and it's everything's really accessible up in the northwest corner. So we base this workshop up in Arthur River, which is just it means you've got to run things a certain way because there's no infrastructure there. So you got to bring all your own food and sort of organize all that yourself. But it's the combination is pretty fantastic right where you are on River's Edge, and it's very accessible to a lot of places. And I think Lukey or Ben sort of posted one of these, and he got a lot of frothing comments from all the American photographers. He loved this sort of
That would have been, and I think I've
yeah,
got
that was bad. I just remember now, yeah.
Tarkine trips.
Which of course,
A lot
because
of stuff in general.
so yeah, I was playing around a lot with Lucas. I wasn't using a tripod, I think I was just leaning off the railing on the river or on the edge of rocks. I lost my filter kit over the edge of into the river at the stage. And one of the clients was a lifesaver, yeah, lifeguard, and he was like, "Oh, go!" but he still couldn't find it.
Oh, that's gorgeous. Was that Sumo?
Famous Sumac lookout, and one of Ben's shots that got him runner-up landscape photography of the year, and NLPA was actually from the same lookout here. Been going there for about 25 years, and it's always pretty fun and interesting whenever you go there. And the mist sort of comes and goes at various times. It's quite good in the morning, good in the afternoon, and sort of the gift that gives all the time. And the geomorphology, the rock structures in the Tarkine are just phenomenal and really hard to beat. And I finally got some of the best light I've had in a long time at Syrian Rocks, which is one of my favorite spots, and very, very close to Arthur River. Like you can sort of just drive in 15 or 20 minutes north or south of Arthur River is such a plethora of locations. You can just spend a lifetime just shooting those, I'd argue. This is a little bit further back at Rocky Cape National Park on the way, and unlike most of the western side of Tasmania, it actually has really beautiful orange lichens, which is I'm not quite sure why it's focused in that area. Normally only find that in the eastern and northeastern corner of Tassie, but it's just one pocket on the northwest corner that has it. That's looking out deep into the sort of Arthur Pyman Conservation Area down towards the road to nowhere as we're looping around on the Tarkine Drive. Just playing around with different sort of shutter speeds with the kelp actually. So that's bull kelp, and it had a lot of sheen on it and a lot of reflective light. So I just sort of play around with that, and I've done a few black and whites as well. But I think
Is that ICM or you've like just it's a static?
Yeah, a bit of both actually. I think
Okay.
I was shooting by hand, but with the kind of 8 stops of image stabilization, I could get away with quite a lot for R5. So I was sitting down and I was locking my elbows in, so getting a sort of fairly static kind of position, and then just letting it play around with different shutter speeds. So, and just waiting for the movement, and just timing it, and it's just good to experiment. But on a longer workshop, like a 4 or 5 day workshop, you got a lot of time to play, I think, and dance and try different things out and experiment with backlighting and different positions and different sort of structure. And but yeah, this particular night, oh my goodness, I was pretty excited to finally get there. It's I've been there many, many, many times, and you always remember the ones that just really stand out from the others. This is another sort of area we actually just found really. We just got out of the car and just went exploring. And that whole coastline, if you walked up and down it, it's just ridiculous what you can find. And it's really not that hard to get around. It is very very edgy sort of rock, and a lot of it's really sharp, and you don't want to be tripping over and not paying attention at the wrong time.
Very true. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, these are like blades, some of these. I mean, if you get on some of those, you probably chop something off. But yeah, as I say, lean into that, the difference.
Better update that insurance pool.
Yeah, funny enough, I actually have to do that today. It turns out I had it set on auto pay for the last 5 years, and unbeknownst to me, it stopped and the company changed. And I just got an email yesterday saying, by the way, you're not currently paid up. So I've got to sort that out tomorrow.
Well, that wasn't kind of prophetic, wasn't it? Saying
Yeah,
that.
slightly prophetic. Yeah. Oh my God, it's like $2,600, so it's a lot. So that's with all the when you're a professional photographer, you've got professional indemnity and other sort of insurances as well. You sort of add on, which
And when
really
you have you have your track record of equipment, there's probably it probably costs a bit extra too.
well, I don't think I've made a claim for more than a decade, I reckon. Probably it might be longer actually. So before that, I had a couple for sure. Especially
I bet you wish
you've
to
had some
know.
of the stories, Lukey. But yeah. So actually, Ben and I are doing another one at the same time of year this year in November. Ben launched it about a month ago, I just remembered. So if you're keen to come up and really dive deep in this one, I'd say you'd find it hard pressed to find a more widely scoped and incredible diversity of landscape anywhere in Australia, and one sort of really accessible kind of place, really. And there's not a lot of people up there as well, which is pretty special.
Yeah, I'm planning to do something up there too as a workshop. I don't know if we'll be exactly the same, but I'm very keen to get back there myself and take a few people as well.
So I had a bit of a break. One of my favorite places in the world is Maria Island, and literally Luke and I were just there a few days ago, just for a day trip, and I've been
Best swim ever. That was unbelievable.
Jesus, oh my God, yeah, we got a good friend Dower Dex, a designer who does all the work for the show, all the graphics for the show, and he was down for 4 days, and geez, we walked to Cape Rail. We did a massive 40K sort of. Well, I did about 40ish.
On an e-bike.
On my electric bike, to be fair, around Maria. Maria is just, it's an island about an hour north of Hobart, about a 25-minute ferry across, and it has the craziest, wildest history, from penitentiaries to wineries to emu farms to cement factories to tourism, to now being a fully fledged national park where they've actually got, they've just brought over recently in the last 5-6 years, the Devils. And this is where you sort of land on. The whole northwest corner is a marine reserve as well, so the water is clear as a bell, and the fish life is incredible. It's huge cliffs, but one of the highlights is definitely the Painted Cliffs, which is this beautiful little pocket of some of the most beautiful rock I've sort of photographed in the world, I reckon. I haven't seen too much like it, and every time I go, I sort of play around or move into a different phase. And I think I went there twice this time. I often go there just on myself. There was a few years there during COVID or just before where they had 3 months of the year where it was free to go over there. So I'd get an island to myself, get a free ferry ride over. It was pretty fantastic. And yeah, there's so much wildlife and animals and things there as well. That's actually the moonlight actually bouncing on the water. It's just so nice again. And then I started doing some light painting. So unfortunately, I left my adapter behind, so I couldn't use a 14mm. I could only use a 24 f4, but I have to play anyway. Just
That's pretty reasonable. I've actually shot the Aurora there once, so I still have to go edit that one up.
Okay.
But
No, I haven't got that there
yeah,
yet.
hard one to get. Oh, that's nice with the moon there. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the moon setting and our Rooseveldt Cottage. There's a great story about that cottage where this one lady lived there on her own for a long, long time. I think she was the last living resident on the island even. And there's stories about her putting up a sign saying she's ready to receive visitors, sailors of the night, and picking up mail and things like that. You can read into that way you like, but there's a lot of great history, and it's sort of written in the landscape through all the ruins as well as having some great historical sort of information there.
Works well for Astro, that one too. You look because you're looking west, so you get the western falls straight over the top of the cottage, which is pretty amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. It is begging for it, probably August, September for a trip over there, Loki.
Yeah.
Give that a bit of a go. That's looking towards the
Really
mainland.
good.
It's sort of southwest around the edge of the cliffs. And yeah, by this time of night, I don't know how many times I've had it to myself down there as well, because not too many people hang around. If they do visit till late like I do, especially after dark even. But that late after sunset glow is my favorite. But then any time of day, you can come in, whether it's in shade or especially when it's in shade, and just play around with the abstract features of the rocks. It's just iron oxides just sort of running down the face that it's very, very soft sand, very soft rock. You don't want to be touching it too much. It's a little bit tricky to get around. You want to get around there at low tide for sure.
You can
can't get.
definitely lose yourself in like just finding little abstracts there, can't you? Like it's just a
Oh,
very
yeah.
if you get into doing that, it's you can spend a lot of time, especially with the right light, like that. Is this post sunset here?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Or maybe just post sunset. So that sort of last sort of afterglow, we got about 25 minutes of sort of light to do. And I was shooting handheld, but I was pushing the IS up to maybe a little bit higher, but it kind of doesn't matter when it's such a grainy sort of subject anyway. It just kind of absorbs that sort of grain of the just sort of absorbs into the natural features of the rock itself. So often the longer I'm there, the smaller and smaller and tighter the shots I get, 'cause you tend to start grand and then you start moving in very, very sensual kind of features, very curvaceous and quite feminine sort of feeling, a lot of the structures there. And different light and different angles and different focal lengths. You can just have a field day there every time you go. And I've been shooting it for 25 years now. And I still thoroughly enjoyed it every time I go back. Um, that was a pretty late shot just as I was leaving. And yeah, you can ride everywhere on a bike there. It's just brilliant. You can hire bikes there now. You didn't used to be able to in the early days, but you can now.
I think it's a pretty big statement when you'd only been there, I think, a week or so earlier, and then you went back again for the amount of, well, it's not a huge amount of effort, but yeah, it says a lot about how much you like the place.
Oh, I love it. It's a sanctuary. Broodie's probably my oldest and longest running sanctuary, but Mariah's probably the second. And I'd say most of the time I go there on my own, to be honest. Just because I just love waking up with animals kind of walking all over your feet, and the wildlife accessibility there is unbelievable. And I haven't focused on that here on the shoot, but yeah, more than anywhere I've ever been in the world. So you got the Cape Barren geese, you got the Tassie devils, you had super dry at the moment, so dry that actually the animals are running out of feed, and that's a little bit sad. So I had some.
Oh, I think that would be right after yesterday.
Oh well, I hope so. Like we finally had a decent rain. First decent rain I reckon in a couple of months, I'd say. Actually,
Yeah,
it's
we've got 28 millimeters.
driest February on record, for sure, and hottest too, I think. So yeah, Tasmania's like a tinderbox at the moment, and we got super lucky not having to deal with fires over this summer. So I feel a little bit blessed. I had a little bit of a side break, and I played a bit of pickleball, and I started last year, and I entered the state championships, and I won the gold medal in state championships for my division. I was just kind of surprised myself. I'd been playing for 3 months, but I had a ball. So if you haven't had a crack at that game, super fun. I'm going to try and get Lucky out there one day. Maybe I come up to Dodgers, have a game with the Lucky.
Yeah, why
So
not? I think they play in the school rec
that's
center.
a fun game, but a bit of a segue, but pretty happy with that. Oh, another little bit of news. Yeah, I got a finalist in the World Photographic Cup actually with this one. And I think there was 6 Australians out of the 10 or 12 categories that they got selected. It's a really interesting one. So it's kind of like the Olympics in that you're invited to participate, and then a panel of experts will decide what images they will or will not choose of yours. So you don't even actually have a say as the artist, even what enters. So, and then you go in representing your country, literally. And this is a mining shot from South Australia, from way, way high up, actually. It was massive, massive mine. So that should find out in the next couple of weeks, actually. Unfortunately, I'm going to be in New Zealand running a workshop when the finals are going to be on in Dallas, Texas. Speaking of which, I'm going to be here. These aren't mine, but just say Rachel Gillespie's, but I'm going to be doing a beautiful tour called the Best of Autumn through the South Island of New Zealand, starting off Lake Tekapo, Mount Cook here, Araki is a Māori name for it is. And we're going to be spending 3 days sort of in and around here, doing some aerials, probably out of Lake Tekapo we're looking, or over around the back of Araki. Timed it for the turning of the leaves, of course, which is a magic time of year. Mackenzie country is just hard to beat. Hopefully there'll be a little bit of early snowfall to mix it up with the autumn sort of colours as well. We're going to be there during the Arrowtown Festival. Autumn Festival, which will be pretty magic. And I was just speaking to Rachel just yesterday, the day before, and it looks like the leaves turning a little bit late this year, which is going to fall heavily in our favour for when we're there. So yeah, 3 days in and around Queenstown, sort of Gawler and Mackenzie country sort of area, and then we slowly make our way further south. That's the Glenorchy Wharf down into Fiordland. And I'll wave at Will when I go past. We're staying in town. Actually, I might see if he's free to come join us for dinner one night or something. Mr. Patino. That's his home away from home, and we're hoping to do some aerials out of Hoelen as well as some of the boat trips and the sounds there as well. So if you feel like a last minute, come and join us, 22nd of April to the 1st of May. We've got 1 or 2 spots free actually still, because we had 2 people that can't make it now. Just reach out to me.
Got our own, we've got Ben and I are doing our Southwest workshop that's sold out around that time too. So it's nice
Same
that
time.
we're
Yeah.
all,
Vegas
we're all-
heaven, mate. We'll all be getting the colour. So
Oh,
I was out
saw a
surfing.
picture that's turning, it's starting to turn it up there. So hopefully it hangs on, and I'm sure
Ready?
it will.
I'll try and get some here before I go too. Yeah, I've been a wave rider for most of my life, and I was out surfing a really, really big swell, 9.2 meter swell, the night before the shot. And it was out of one of my favorite breaks down here, which hardly ever breaks, but needs a massive swell like that here in Hobart Town, actually. I know that you're not allowed to talk about these things, but in terms of where they are, but it was fairly local. And I recognised the guy on the water who's one of the best big wave surfers in Australia, and started chatting to him and trading waves, and it was a really nice sort of encounter. And I said, "Oh, what are you down for, man?" And he said, "Oh, it's going to be Shippy's going to be 15 foot in the morning. I'm going out at like 4 o'clock in the morning. Going to be surfing it." And I was like, "All right, I'm going to come join." So I raced down there myself, got up super early, and this is a shot of a local surfer, James McKean, actually. Jimmy McKean. There's a hardcore crew of local boys that just know this wave like the back of their hand. You can see these crazy formations and steps and lips that happen in the wave that make it almost impossible to surf, arguably, on some of them. Some of them aren't physically makeable at all. And you really get able to read these lines and have compression springs in your legs to be able to make the drop. And yeah, that one actually made the paper. This is just a series of sort of semi unedited shots, just to give you a sense of the power of this place. It's about an hour and a half sort of walk down and maybe 2 hour walk back up the hill to get a look at these things. And it's just like thunder in years sort of standing next to it. And just even being a surfer my whole life and being a pretty competent one. I was a South Island champion in 1993, a long time ago, or bodyboarding that is. And yeah, I still shake my hand at what these guys are doing. I mean, a lot of these guys are getting towed in because they're physically almost too hard to paddle, especially the really big ones, especially on certain swell angles. But the ground's really uneven and full of cast-sized boulders, just like you're looking at in front of you. And that's partly why the shape of the wave is so unusual.
Is that you, Paul?
No, should be though. Look at that. Get shacked. But yeah, the power of the spit coming out of them too is pretty crazy. And then yeah, so I just on a whim, I just thought, oh well, I'll just throw the Mercury and see if I like it. And so I've just been talking to them about the exhibition anyway, and they were like, "Oh, you will run that." And then I actually sent it off to Stab magazine, which is one of the sort of most sort of high-end, sort of deep cultural, immersive sort of magazines, and they did a whole 3-page article on myself as a photographer and a bodyboarder, and as well as with the photos here, which I was pretty chuffed by actually, because it's not something you really get access to. But one of the big things that really peaked summer for me was I had my sky jamming exhibition on, and this is a year and a half in the making. And it was a full sort of abstract aerial exhibition from images around the world. And I feel like sky dreaming really speaks to the ethos and the aesthetic and everything around what makes this type of work so special to me personally. And I love creating work. This is a wonderful graphic created by Dex again. Thank you again, my brother. And graphics can be really important for a lot of things. They give you a really professional look to things. They often make it more accessible. They give it a professional sort of edge to things. That's just a straight photograph. That's the one that won the Capture Awards at the end of last year as well. So I've got the $7,500 Olympus OM1 that I haven't even opened up yet. It's just sitting in a box next to me, so I'm gonna have to have a play with that. And this is another big one that I had. That was my feature image for the exhibition. This was another one, tapestry. I took both of these from Iceland. I don't know how nature creates this out of water. That's literally glacial flow. The detail is just absolutely bonkers. I still just look at it and I just shake my head, even though I've been there myself. It doesn't even make sense. And some old favorites and some newbies in here. I did most of the printing myself. I also got my good friend Andrew Phipps to do a lot of the printing, the larger ones at the end of the show. I could do everything up to A2 myself, and then anything bigger than that, I either outsource to Simon Elding at Full Gamut or my friend Andrew at Eagle Eye Tasmania, who's just
Yeah, I
recently.
really like this one. It's very nice. Beautiful.
So I've had people see a woman here, see a hand, see it as a dishwashing tray. I had all sorts of things. But it's actually a trona mineral mine in California that I shot. I've got a few pet projects in Death Valley, and that area is one of my favorites, and I'm still sitting on a lot of work from there. This is it also looks like a lung to me, but it's a very rare platform reef, about 40 k's off the northwest coast of the remote Kimberley, in the northwest. It's a sanctuary for the last of the green turtles, actually. One of my classics, Phoenix Rising. I had that. I actually sold the big one of that as well as the big one of interlaced as well. This is my lead light, which I dearly love. It's almost like peeling paint here on a window to me. Another big mining site in California. I printed this up on the beautiful metallic paper. Look, it looks so good. And it was just really lovely to be at home. And I haven't exhibited in Hobart, I think, for like either 15 or 18 years. Sort of called Vanilla Sky. It's one from Kalgoorlie, actually. I think that was second in the Head-On Landscape Awards a while back. This one's I've changed the name a few times on this one. I called it mitochondria originally, and then I changed it to fossilized for this one because it just looks like fossilized eggs or dinosaur prints or something to me as well. It's even hard to describe it. I think it is actually abandoned shrimp farm. This so-called desert leaf. It's from one of the dried out riverbeds in the Kimberley near the King River, which you get access to. Yeah, I'm setting up a workshop later in the year in August with Tani Malkin to the East Kimberley. Stay tuned for that one. That's what I'm really excited to do. Tani's one of the greatest aerial photographers in the world, in my opinion, and she's got a master's in fine art. She's an incredible person and deep lover. It's one of Tom's actually. So I did the exhibition with Tom Polachek. We've done 3 exhibitions together. These are a few of his. And Tom actually came to one of my workshops about 5 years ago to Karitana Lake Air, and he just got bitten by the bug. And this was his feature image for the exhibition, which I absolutely adore. So graphics have been part of the exhibition, like getting them in different formats for Instagram and Facebook and different things is kind of important. So you can be consistent with your branding and get it to fit in the right shapes for all the different sort of formats. So big thanks to Dex for. I just want to show you a couple of examples of the shapes are quite different. If you're gonna, this Instagram story one, for instance, that really sort of vertical shaping.
Was they did you do all squarials or did you? I can't even remember.
A bit of a mix, yeah. Speaking of which, there's Andrew Phipps himself, and unfortunately, he could no longer make that frame. He hand washed all the wood himself, and this mat board, which is perfect metallic color and the best I've ever come across ever in my life, nobody makes it anymore. And it's like, so that was a one-off, and I almost didn't sell it because I was ready to have it on my wall. So a little bit of a taster of the opening of the exhibition. Was up for a couple of weeks. Tom and I were manning it together. It was a big exhibition. There was 83 pieces there, and it literally probably took us 2.5 days. And Tom and I, and as you can see, various sizes, some are framed, some are unframed. I wanted to make these really accessible, so I had quite a lot of unframed work there. And I priced it very reasonably, so a lot of my community and friends and colleagues who've just seen my work and know what I do from afar and haven't really had access to it because I haven't exhibited here for so long could get through. But we did really well. We sold almost $20,000 worth of work, and expenses were not too high. I had a few left over from other exhibitions and some from APRA and things like that. Tom did all this extra work, like hand making all these beautiful fold out books and pieces. It was a bit of a dance. Tom and I had exhibited twice before, and we have enough confidence that rather than spending months beforehand deciding what we're going to put in together, we actually just basically turned up. And we spent 2.5 days just dancing around to create a bit of visual flow and to blend our work together in different ways. Super special for me, like I said, to have so many people I love. I bloody cried 3 times in my speech. Remember, there's my friend Tom. And just to walk you through the gallery, it's a beautiful upstairs gallery and the Salamaker Art Centre here in Hobart. And, you want to create a bit of visual flow moving around. Tom made this incredible deck of slide out kind of little surprise kind of structures. You can see this is one of my favorite walls here, actually. A lot of my new work from Iceland, top and bottom, and the Arabian Desert there as well. And that's a new one from the Gulf Carpentaria. These are some from the Altitude South project I did with Tim Raid and David Darlenberg. And we're going to be working on a book for that. We just applied for the exhibition to go up to head on, actually, this year, hopefully. This is a big feature piece in the front here. So as we walked in, we wanted a dynamic duo of one of mine and one of Tom's, just to kind of greet you. And it made sense to have the two images that we'd promoted with to be the first ones you sort of greeted with it as you came in. And we could have moved these panels different ways and sideways, and we structured it so there was a bit of breathing room out the back for the bigger pieces on the back wall, but a bit of impact quite close up when you first came in. There's lots of storytelling can go on. It's quite difficult or different in a way to be placing completely abstract work together. And really, sometimes it's just color, sometimes it's shape, sometimes it's size, sometimes it's the contextual kind of feel of them. Sometimes whether there's more of a man-made structures in there. There's quite a mixture of man-made as well as nature-based work in here. And sky dreaming kind of, to me, sort of, we didn't want to sort of exclude sort of man's impact on the environment, and that's sort of quite a big part of the conversation here from an artistic point of view. These are all sort of speaking to that a little bit. And that was one I shot in a microlight over San Juan goosenecks after we almost crash landed on a motorway when the wings started flopping around. This was a beautiful film, sort of behind the scenes sort of film we had running in the corner too, so you can sort of engage with it that way. And we had cards up the front as well. So it's really good to be thinking about the accessibility of your work, like being able to present it as best as possible at the same time, sizes that aren't going to blow away people's walls. It depends on where you are, Sydney or maybe West Australia. There's a lot of people with big walls and big rooms. Not so much down here in Tassie. So sort of strategically sort of choosing the size of the work relative to the market that you're going for and where you are is worth a bit of thought. And a lot of this work was quite accessible price wise. So and most of it sort of went. And it's always really good to actually pick a few feature images and really go to town with them. So if people choose or want to see the best of how something can be presented, they're not left sort of wondering how to do that, Here we had a box with extra ones on the side. What's that, Lucky?
I was just saying it's really great to get an insight into the process or the thought process you had around laying it out and, just understanding, all of the different things.
It's a show in itself. I mean, this was a year and a half in the making. There was nothing overnight about this. And we both went on our own individual journeys, and we decided to do it that way rather than sort of preempt it together, partly because we've done it twice already and done it really successfully. We knew it was going to work. But still, it's quite a dance sort of moving into a space this big with not even knowing what the other person's bringing in and putting it all together. But we really enjoy that, even though it took us 2.5 days. It's one of the Light Collective books. That's the book I wrote for Ignacio Palacios, sort of dissecting award-winning images. And that's one of the Light Collective's Cutting Thunder Like Air books. Got a lot of press, actually, which was really good around the World Photographic Cup win, as well as the exhibition and radio and the paper. So that really helped, that timing, and that's really part of my strategy for getting people in the door and timing it for that sort of thing. I shot a wedding the night before this, and they were also and I had a big article in the paper about the show, and I had met most of the people before, and they were all so excited. We had such a good day that the entire wedding party came in just to see the show the next morning, sort of half hungover. It was brilliant. Actually, loved it. Another thing, strategic thing to do with exhibitions is to have reasons for people to come in other than just random. And so we run artist talks quite regularly, and artist walkthroughs as well. This is Tom and I sort of share sort of an hour each, going through the real deeper sort of workings behind the scenes sort of aspects and the aesthetics behind the choices we made and the artistic process, and even the the literal capture process as well, because it's a little bit unique doing sort of really deep sort of abstract aerial sort of work in that regard. So it's I'd highly recommend that, like having a few points scattered through like beginning, middle, ends, where you have actual physical events that get people to come out and have another reason to come is a really good idea. Very, very special to me. I did an art therapy camp. So once a year at the moment, it used to be a huge part of my life, wilderness therapy. and I work with a local school, Sacred Heart College, and basically the idea is to go out into a very, very deep, immersive wild wilderness space. And in this case, it's the southern coast of the Tarkine, which is super remote, and just get deeply immersed with, you know, in this case, it was for 4 days. It was pretty wild. We almost didn't even get down there at all. This is the only place you could land. If the wind's in the wrong direction, they can't do it. And in this case, the wind was in the wrong direction, and we went down there not even knowing if we're going to be able to do it. It was really weird weather. It was 20 degrees at 4:30 in the morning when we got up that morning to pack, and about 8 degrees by late in the afternoon. It was normally it's the other way around. It warms up during the day. This is the opposite. And you can see some of the foam.
It was pretty funky down in Hobart, so I was a bit worried about you actually. It was almost getting blown away down here.
Oh yeah, she's pretty wild out there. So this is the southern Tarkine coast, and it's a wild place. A lot of the biggest recorded swells on Earth. And we went in a few different directions and different places I don't normally go to give the kids a bit of leeway. But the idea is to, I did 2 or 3 kind of processes before we went on the camp to introduce them to the idea about photography and landscape and how it could be used as a portal to connect with a place, to sink into it, to notice things you wouldn't otherwise notice, to look under your feet and notice the smaller worlds as well, to work on some abstract work, to this is part of their assignments actually, to people and landscape, the small macro world, and the abstract process where you're actually looking at an idea or a sound or a feeling as opposed to something literal, as well as the grander landscapes, of course. So it gets them sort of viewing the world through different portals. And a lot of them are just using phones, which I think is fine for that sort of conceptual sort of idea and approach. And a bunch of them brought the school cameras out or got out the tripods as well. And, you know, and yeah, I mean, Luke and I have been out here a number of times. I've been coming out here for 25 years and probably due for another one, Lucky, I reckon. Just got a little bit of
We
late last night.
absolutely are. I think we've talked a long time about doing the Temata Pime and walking the whole coastline. I think that'd be pretty
Yeah, so
special.
basically heading north from here, this turns into about 30 kilometers of dunes up here. And when Luke and I did our Butcherkweepa film a couple of years ago, this was right up in the middle of one of the most remote areas you could possibly get to. We got out to by chopper. You could walk 3 days and get up there and carry on another
We'll
3
have
days.
to get Benny in on it, Ben Mays, and do a 2LP adventure. Just us guys.
Yeah,
That'd be-
I reckon he'd be up for that. I haven't done that. I've done
I know he's
the
keen.
northern section, the southern section, the middle section, but there's a few gaps here and there that'd be really nice to cover.
I just interrupt there, Paul. I did have a question around your Sky Dreaming exhibition and if it's coming to Sydney sometime. I think you did mention that you've applied for head on, so it could be.
Well, I applied for head on for the Altitude South project this year, which
Oh,
is an abstract aerial project, and I'd say it's pretty likely we'll get in. This is the trip up the Pieman River, actually, which was one of the most beautiful mornings I've ever shot it. Also, I've got a website, skydreaming.com.au, if you want to have a look at the work and see some of the behind the scenes videos and get a bit of a deeper sense of the work and blow it up and have a look at it properly. But yeah, I haven't processed some of these, but oh my goodness, look, it was one of the best mornings that I've had sort of moving up the river. Just the atmospherics, which you don't often or always get, was really, really just everywhere. And the kids were so exhausted, they were just asleep in the boat, and I was running around like a headless chook, just shooting everywhere, of course.
this wasn't the Arcadia, was it? It was the other
No. They've changed the name.
Bob something?
Yeah, it's not the Lady Jane anymore. It's Bob something or other, named after one of the original kind of pioneers in the area. But yeah, like it's very,
Wow.
very ancient. The forest on the side here literally has a whole bunch of living human pines still even, which are some of the rarest sort of trees to find and some of the oldest trees in the world, actually. They grow upwards of 2,000 years plus. And they were all cleaned out really early on by the pioneers because they literally just grew right on the river's edge and they were easy to capture and they were incredible for shipbuilding. And because they didn't rot in the water and they were easy to bend with steam for the shape. So they're probably some of the best sort of boat building timbers in the world. And it's very precious what's left. So that's part of the ancientness of this, that it's just super, super intensely pure rainforest through the whole journey all the way down. There's not really anything like it, I don't think. That's not that's commercially run. in Tasmania. It really sort of stands alone. So I had a field day with these, just getting up there and just absolutely loving it. So to the sound of sleeping teenagers in the background. A bit of a drive though. Good took us a good 8 hours to get back to Hobart. Um, and yeah, that's just driving over the hills on the way in there. We're near the
You go in via the north or via
yeah, we went further north this time. It's sort of, yeah, if you've got a long drive and you're coming back in the dark in particular, it's probably the better option because it's a longer
it's one of those weird places where if you're leaving from Hobart, it's almost the same distance to drive from the south via Queenstown or via the north, up past Launceston and around that way when you're
it's a
going
little
to
bit, it's just straighter and less windy for the first half.
yeah,
So
it's
it's sort of, you
more
can
of a
just,
straightforward drive for the north route.
yeah, with the south is far more scenic, I'd argue, but it's just absolutely windy as anything.
You don't have to worry about the barge, of course, in the north one. So
Yeah, you actually have to get a car barge to get over that to go south, which only works at certain times of the day as well. And sometimes they can have issues with, there's been a lot of water flowing along or something's come down the river.
Paul and I are running a special workshop for the Camberwell Camera Club, and that's going to be part of one of the trips that we're doing with them this year. And so I'm pretty excited about getting back to Corinna myself. And if you've got a camera club that would be interested in us running a workshop for your club, please do get in touch. It's something that Paul and I really enjoy doing, and we've got quite a bit of amazing places that we can explore and a couple really amazing itineraries.
Yeah, we're in a really great position, Luke and I, for creating sort of as best as you can possibly get Tasmania, really experience wise, because we know it so well. And it's really fun working with clubs and people that already have a whole bunch of keen people, and they just like. Actually, this New Zealand workshop, it was actually a bunch of people just approached me and said, "Can you design a workshop for us?" So I literally custom designed it. This is about 48 hours ago, Lukey.
Yeah.
At Mona, Dex was down, and we not only we go to Cape Rowell and Mariah Island, we also went to Mona. And I haven't really been through many of them yet, but just if you hadn't sort of been to Mona, definitely take a freaking camera in there. It's a heck of a place to shoot. And you never really quite know what you're going to be coming across or what you're going to be presented with. And that's part of the fun of it, really, is there's some really consistent features. Like this is quite a consistent one in there, but you can just really play around with it. Get some like Escher-like sort of qualities. And I think this reflective area here is actually oil in the water, but it's wonderful.
Quite eerie in black and white, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite different.
Long black hair, yeah.
And there's the man himself, man of the hour. And if you don't follow Dix's work, Monochrome Visions, do yourself a favor and do that. He's one of the greatest iPhone photographers in the country by far. And there's the boys. So I haven't got through any more than that. So that's probably, here we go. There's a couple more. Yeah, that's right. I didn't realize it was the last day of it, but just next door to this was this incredible soundscape exhibition where it was completely dark except for a tiny little halo of light at the top. And you laid back down on this structure. You had 250 speakers around you in surround sound. And it was the lead singer of Sigur Rós. And it was this incredibly powerful, super eerie ode to the volcanoes of Iceland, which is pretty relevant given it's still erupting right now. And oh goodness me, I've still got the shivers even thinking about it. This is another one that just finished too. The what was it called, Licky?
That one closing, was it? I didn't
Faces of
realise.
Christ. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it was Faces of Christ, which was what was in here, which was pretty apt to be looking at on Easter Monday. And this was called I don't know if it's Something of Dreams or whatever. But I'll finish off just with a tiny taster. We may actually be lucky enough to get Adam on the next show to talk about Bhutan. But I'm just set up to run a 14-day adventure in Bhutan, which is, if you're not aware, it's an incredible country just sandwiched between China and the old Tibet, as it were, and India. And yeah, I ran a workshop there.
I'd love to get there myself, so can't wait for him to come on.
Yeah, and this is your flight in. It was like, I couldn't believe flying into this thing. I think it's one of the narrowest valleys and one of the highest landings of a commercial airliner in the world. It's pretty crazy to go in there. And I just caught that at a long lens to sort of go in. I usually land at Paro on the western side. So we're going to land to the west and then actually fly to central, sort of eastern Bhutan, and slowly work our way back. It's the most underdeveloped country on earth, incredibly spiritual place. 10% of the population are monks, both men and women. So everywhere you go, it speaks deeply to their culture and the
With the
reverence.
hallucinogenic substances there, was it?
What's
Oh,
that?
sorry.
Oh, yeah, no, I was just trying. I was like, how do you represent a sound? Because it's making all these beautiful sort of and just the emanations. Like the idea spiritually is when you roll these wheels around, that the prayers inside are being spread out to the world around. And so I wanted to sort of somehow try to visually sort of represent that. So got a lot of ideas to go about this time to get a bit more creative and conceptual about the kind of ideas of their place. I mean, it's the only carbon negative country on earth. The people are some of the happiest and most elegant and refined people I've ever met in my life. It's a real privilege to be a monk there, and that's actually something a lot of families aim for because their education is so high and so wonderful. Most of the people are still wearing traditional dress for the entire country. You can't go through the country at all without local guides. And a big part of the way things are run is that not only the country, but every sort of town, as it were, it has a local kind of legislative council, and then it also has a lama. And so 50% of it is managed by a politician, and 50% is managed by the spiritual leader, and they work together, and they both run the country that way, as well as I don't know why that's not thinking cheeky monkeys. And we're timing with some beautiful festivals as well, because that's one of the most colourful and interesting parts of experiencing Bhutanese culture in particular. They're very refined, and they have deep sort of deep stories, and the religious kind of material is really complex and really multi-layered and really conceptual as well in terms of their religious kind of overlays. But you're in the foothills and the Himalayas, so there's no shortage of grandness and big scenes, and I'll whip through because I won't save some of these for when I'm without.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we don't want to spoil the I really can't
Yeah,
wait.
quick sort of teaser because it's kind of time to let go. But I'll finish on that one because that's my screen saver. And it just give you a sense of, to me that speaks beautifully to just how spiritual it feels being there. There's a belief that if you ever get the privilege of going to Bhutan in your lifetime, that you're either at the very end of your cycle of life, as it were, in terms of reincarnation.
I hope that's not why you're going back, Paul.
Yeah, it might be my lucky last, mate. Get one last run in while I can, and it's a little bit volatile with China and stuff as well on the borders, trying to push it and take it over. So you want to get in there when you can, and it is quite limited who can go in there. You're only allowed in there 14 days at a time for a whole year, unless you have sort of diplomatic ties. But goodness me, one of the most powerful, deeply spiritual and immersive experiences I've ever had in my life, and I feel very chuffed to have the opportunity to be going back again. But anyway, a few adventures we've had and a few to come. And Luke and Ben and I will be dropping a bit of special news pretty soon about something we've been cooking up together as a TLP team.
Absolutely, yeah. This is
Later in
that's
the
a
year. We're
big
pretty
one.
excited
It's a
for
big
it.
one. That's for sure. Definitely. It's always
Very
I've been wanting to do something, all three of us, as a proper TLP event for a very long time, and so it's looking like it's all happening. And so yeah, we can't reveal too much detail until we've got everything all lined up. But please keep an eye out on your emails. No doubt you'll hear all about it when the particular show comes up. And yeah, we've definitely been very busy behind the scenes working on some things, that's for sure.
a few teaser words: deep, comprehensive, immersive. Probably a week long. In somewhere that probably very few people have been or stay, with guest speakers as well. Like it's probably pretty unusual, pretty special experience that we're trying to lean into all of our collective strengths individually as well, between Luke and Ben and I, as well as some guests, and really offer something just deeply comprehensive that runs through a massive spectrum of what it means to be an image maker, and all sorts of different facets of it. So yeah, being a team like that, I think we have a wide skill set and a wide set of resources and a wide set of experiences. So we're pretty excited to be able to put something together for that leads into all of our strengths at the same time. So stay tuned.
Definitely, definitely. And we've probably run a bit over time, so we might have to leave it there, I think. We could
That's
talk a
time.
bit more about what we're up to this year, but there's plenty more time for that over the next few shows and things like that. So thanks so much for joining us. Do you have anything finally to say before?
I said one thing. It would have come out in the show email today, but I've set up a trip with Toby to Svalbard next year in July, and if you're keen, now's a really good time because there's a 15% off early bird special. So either reach out to me or have a look at the show email, and yeah, think about it. It's a hell of a place. It's the same but different from the south. It has its own nuances and different sort of animals and wildlife up there, and you can go back and have a look at one of the Svalbard shows that I did as well to get a bit of a sense about it. But yeah, it's kind of like one of those trips you want. By getting it early, you're doing yourself a big favor because 50% on a big trip like that actually is quite a lot. So
Yeah, I'd love to get up there one day myself. It looks like an incredible place, and I'd love to see some
I
polar
want to
bears.
South, Lukey. You've done it to me after tonight.
That's so true. No, but yeah, no, there's heaps more that we're cooking up this year. So yeah, keep an eye out, and yeah, thanks for sticking around, and thanks for watching us again and talk about all of our antics and what we've been up to. We'll be back again in 2 weeks' time. We don't have an announcement of what we'll actually be covering in 2 weeks, but I know is that Adam's
Might
coming
be
on.
if you're up for it, Lukey, then Adam's
Yeah.
ready to run on Bhutan.
If he's
So
around, then I'm super keen for that. Bhutan looks like an incredibly beautiful country, and so yeah, look out. If you haven't signed up to our mailing list, there's a link to that in the YouTube description, and so do sign up, and then you get advance notice. Sometimes it's not much advance, I must admit, but before the episode, but it also does include some of the other things we're up to as well, and other opportunities to come along and travel with us and do some different bits and pieces. All right, we'll leave it there. Thanks again, guys, and
that was great, Lukey. Thanks, brother.
and yeah, hopefully I have some more time now to get a few more edits done so you can see some finished shots, which would be nice. So, through everybody, and see you next time.
Hey, everyone.